How would you like another couple of hours tacked onto every day so that you can spend some time doing the things you actually want to do rather than just the stuff you have to do? Over the last 6 years, I've been slowly building habits to reclaim my time so that I don't fill the best years of my life with constant work, household chores, and chauffeuring my kids around to 10,000 birthday parties. I now have a solid 11 habits that save me a minimum of 20 hours a week so that I can run a successful online business, maintain this YouTube channel, care for my 2 small children, do a daily workout, and still find time to read novels, go out for dinner with friends, and get my fill of true crime documentaries on Netflix, which I have to do alone because my husband absolutely refuses to watch them with me. So let's run through these 11 habits that are going to save you 20 plus hours a week. So before we get into these tips, I just want to make a quick recommendation, and that is that when you recover some of this time, instead of using that recovered time to just get more things done off your to-do list, actually use it to take care of some of your deepest priorities. So maybe that's spending more time with family, friends, loved ones, or in self-care. Imagine if you could take a nice leisurely walk every day, or a warm bubble bath, or enjoy a leisurely dinner with a loved one. That is the way I'd love for you to think about what to do with this reclaimed time. The other recommendation is sometimes, even though it sounds silly, we're really not aware of what we are actually doing with our time. So in this instance, a time audit can be really helpful. So essentially what you do is you keep track of basically what you're doing every minute of every day for a full week and figure out where the most of your time is being spent, where you'd like to spend additional time, and see how you can move some of those chunks around. So if you're interested in doing a time audit for yourself, I've left a link to a spreadsheet down in the description below, so do check that out. So the first tip is to leverage your green zone. Author Carey Nieuwhof talks about this concept of breaking down your workday into 3 different energy zones, basically. So there's a green zone, that's the zone where you're at your peak energy. There's the yellow zone where you're dwindling energy during the day, and then the red zone, that is when you have your least amount of energy during the day. So in order to make the most of that peak energy time, that green zone of your day, this is really when you want to be scheduling your most important brain-taxing work. So if you're a writer, you'd be doing writing during this time. If you're an artist, that's when you're creating your art. Just in general, as a business owner, this is when you want to be performing your revenue-generating activities. Basically anything that is going to have the biggest impact and move whatever it is that you're doing forward in the biggest possible way. Then you want to save your more lower leverage tasks for those yellow and red zones. So for example, I know that if I need to write an email in a day, I'm going to write that first thing in the morning, because for me, and I think for most people, our peak energy times, our green zone, is first thing in the morning. If I get caught up in other tasks and I end up trying to write that email last thing during my day, it's going to take me twice as long because I just don't have the mental bandwidth available to me anymore. So the idea is really to do your most important work when your brain is sharpest and do all of that lower leverage work when your brain is at its lowest capacity. You could save at least an hour a day just structuring your day in terms of when your energy is at its peak, your green zone, and when your energy is at its lowest, the red zone. Tip number 2 is to take active breaks. So if you work at a desk all day like I do, your mind and your body need 2 particular things in order to properly recharge during a break. Your mind needs a rest and your body needs some movement. This means getting up from your desk, moving around, not listening to podcasts, not going on your phone, giving your mind a total break. So throughout my workday, I will work for 90-minute chunks, and then in between those 90-minute chunks, I get up and I take a 10 to 15 minute break. The perfect thing to do, I have found during this time, is to do some mindless chores for about 10 or 15 minutes. At lunchtime, I take a little over an hour, and usually half an hour of that time I'm dedicating to a walk outside. So if you take 2 15-minute breaks a day, plus you take an hour for lunch, and you use half an hour of that toward an active break, that is a recouped 1.5 hours per day. Next up is task batching. This is really simple, and all it means is just grouping similar tasks together throughout your day and doing them all at once. Batching tasks together allows us to conserve mental energy. It creates deeper focus for the task that we're working on. and it allows us to be generally much more productive than if we're constantly switching back and forth. It's also really good for reducing overall stress levels. So for me, right now, I'm shooting content for my channel. I'm gonna be shooting all 4 videos all in one day, getting it all done at once. Throughout my regular day, I check all my emails only once. I go into social media only once, and I schedule all of my meetings either on Mondays or on Fridays. As for hours saved per day, let's be really conservative here, but I think that you could probably save about 30 minutes a day. The next tip is time blocking, and you can kind of look at this as an extension of task batching. So once you've got all of your similar tasks batched together, it's time to plot them into the calendar. Now, when time blocking, it's really important, I think, to pay yourself first. So whatever your top personal priorities are, self-care, time with family, that sort of a thing, put those things in first, because those are always the things that fall to the bottom of the priority list, even though they're the things that matter the most to us. Next, you want to block your most important things first. So this really is kind of your green zone activities that we talked about a moment ago. Those are the most important things, not the most urgent things. Block those in next. And then finally, you want to block in all of those sort of urgent but not important things, the things that have to get done. They're not necessarily related to any goal that we're trying to move forward. And you can kind of arrange those in whatever's left over. And if you want to hear a little bit more about my overall time management system, where I go into time blocking a little bit more, you can check out this video right here. In terms of time saved, I would probably say this saves about 15 minutes per day of planning. The next tip is to templatize your days. And this really builds on the last 2 concepts of task batching and time blocking. And really it's about creating reliable routines that you go through every single day, just so that it reduces some of the mental friction, reduces stress. You know exactly what's coming every day of the week. So my days look almost identical. Basically, I wake up at 7 o'clock every single day. I go and take care of the dog. Then I go and do yoga. Then I get myself ready for work. Then I'm working by about 9 o'clock. I work until noon. I have lunch. Then I work until 5. Then I go and make dinner for the family. Then I'm doing the bedtime routine with the kids. Then I'm relaxing. Then I go to bed. It really doesn't change. And I know to some people that might sound incredibly boring, but for me, it just really helps to reduce that mental friction. I know what's going to be happening every day, at what time. I'm not spending extra time planning. I just know what's going to happen every day. And again, I think doing things this way, just getting up and like mindlessly going through my routine, saving that mental energy for the important work that I want to do, that's probably saving me about 15 minutes a day. Next up, this tip is stopping at 90%. And this is an amazing time saver for all of you perfectionists out there. I talk about this a little bit more in my video, How to Get Things Done as a Perfectionist, which you can check out right here. But basically, it's exactly like the name of the tip says. You are going to stop whatever project you're working on at 90%. Most of perfectionism is really obsessing over those last 5 to 10% of details. We can notice those details, most other people can't. I know for me, if I'm writing or even when I'm shooting these videos, sometimes I have to stop the camera and do a retake like 10 times in a row. I could keep doing that over and over and over and over, but sometimes I make a mistake and I just leave it in there. I don't want to waste the time. In the last batch of videos I shot for YouTube, I saw after the fact that I had mascara all over my eyelid. Now, I could have wasted another 4 hours going back and reshooting all of that, but I just thought, whatever, either no one's gonna notice, or if people do notice, I don't think they're gonna care that much. So I just let it out there, even though I was just like, ugh. That's all I can see when I see those videos, is that mascara all over my eye. Similarly, when I'm writing emails, I could just go back and keep revising and keep revising and keep revising, but I know that just perfecting it, that last 2%, no one else is really gonna notice. So it's just a waste of time. Now, hours saved kind of depends on your level of perfectionism. I think for me, this probably saves me at least 20 minutes a day. Again, it can be a little bit tricky to pin this one down, but that is going to be my personal estimate, is that this probably does save me at least 20 minutes a day. Are you liking these tips so far? If so, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. That would be super helpful for me. Thank you so much. Next up is to completely stop multitasking. So most of the videos I've watched recently on how to save time or how to get more things done actually advocate for multitasking. But as I said at the beginning, you don't need to be productive every minute of the day. And if you're even doing things like listening to an audiobook while you're doing housework or walking, yes, you're taking that information in, but how much of it are you actually retaining? For me, I always used to be playing audiobooks in the background while I was getting ready, while I was going for walks, whatever. I can't remember like 95% of all of that information I took in. So not only did that end up being a complete waste of time for me, I got absolutely nothing out of it. And studies have shown that multitasking can actually reduce your productivity by as much as 40%. And a recent article in Forbes talks about how distractions and interruptions and the time it takes to refocus after those interruptions and distractions can swallow up as much as 2 hours per day. So potentially that is the amount of time you will save per day just by stopping multitasking, 2 hours. The next tip is something I like to call the if you had to trick. This is something I use when I'm short on time and I'm faced with a task that normally takes me more amount of time than the time I actually have left. And this happened to me just yesterday, actually. I really only had 45 minutes to write my weekly newsletter. It normally takes me 2 hours. So I asked myself, how would I get this done if I had to get it done in 45 minutes? It sounds simple enough, but it actually encourages your brain to get creative, get resourceful, and start problem solving. More often than not, you are actually able to get it done in that allotted time. So whether you only have 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour to do a task that usually takes longer, ask yourself, if I had to get this done in 15 minutes, if I had to get this done in 30 minutes, how would I do it? So how many hours saved? Well, for me, yesterday in that one example, something that normally takes me 2 hours, I was able to get done in 45 minutes. So I ended up saving an hour and 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and be conservative here though, and let's say that it even just saves you 15 minutes on an average day. The next tip is to outsource, and the trick here is you don't want to be doing any tasks that you can actually pay someone else to do for less money than your time is worth. So outsourcing not only frees up so much of your own time, it actually makes pretty good financial sense if you do it the right way. So let's say your time is worth $50 an hour and you're spending an hour a day answering all your own emails, which is a task that you could probably pay a VA to do for $15 an hour. Essentially, you're paying someone, yourself, $50 an hour to answer emails. This just simply doesn't make sense. But again, there's going to be a time when you can start slowly delegating some of these lower leverage tasks to someone else. Now, a big key here that I think a lot of people leave out when they're trying to employ this tip is that whatever time you're saving by paying someone else, by outsourcing one of those tasks, you then have to be using that time on a revenue generating activity. So if my time is worth $50 an hour, and I get an hour's worth of email off of my plate, I'm paying someone else $15 an hour to do that. I now need to use that hour to put toward a revenue generating activity. This is how it's all going to work out for the better for you financially. Now for me, I started really small. When I first started outsourcing, I think the first thing I outsourced was a cleaner. A couple of years on, I've still got the same cleaner. She comes every other week for about 5 hours. Next thing I did after that was I got a meal kit service. So I'm saving an hour a week not planning meals. All of my other groceries I get delivered. That's saving me at least an hour a week. And my VA now works about 25 hours a week. Plus I have a couple other contractors that also save me about 4 to 5 hours a week. Realistically, you can save at least an hour a day. For me, I'm saving at least 5 or 6 hours a day now from outsourcing. Next up is to systematize and automate absolutely everything that you can. So you can automate all of your banking, bill paying, savings, investments, all of that stuff can just be done on the background. And then another one was anything to do with meal planning and groceries. So before I started doing the meal planning kits, I actually came up with 3 or 4 weeks of meal plans that I would just rotate out once a month. So I'd have all of those meals planned out. And then in my grocery store app, I went in and just created pre-made shopping lists for each of those weeks. So instead of spending all of this time meal planning, yes, it did take a little bit of time to set up, but once it was set up, I could just look, what's my meal plan for the week? It was already done, and I could just zip down that list, and that was a huge time saver. So anything that you can think of in that way that you can systematize or automate either at home or in your business is gonna save you a ton of time. So for me, just on the grocery shopping alone, that was saving me at least an hour a week. So we can call that about 15, 20 minutes a day. Final tip, do less. Whatever it is on your to-do list, ask you if it's something that's either really important to you, and if it is, try and answer why it's important to you. Ask yourself if that to-do is tied to any goal. Like, is doing that task actually going to move you forward personally or professionally in some way? If not, cross that sucker off. Time saved totally depends, but see if you can go through your to-do list every single day and cross at least one 15-minute task completely off your to-do list. And if you do that, that'll save you 15 minutes a day. So there you have it. I hope you're able to use some of these tips. And if you can't save 20 hours a week, even if you could just save 2 or 5 hours a week, wouldn't that be amazing? If you've got any of your own amazing time-saving tips, please list them in the comments below. If you want some time management tips for the highly distractible, if you're a total scatterbrain, check out this video here. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with anyone you think might find it useful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.